What actually happens to your super at 60? Most people think it's simple. You hit 60, everything unlocks, everything is tax-free, done. It's not what you think, and getting this wrong costs people real money in both directions. Some hold off on decisions they did not need to delay. Others assume protections that do not actually apply to them yet. Let's go through what is actually true. Because this part is real, just narrower than people assume. Once you've met a condition of release after 60, withdrawals from a tax super fund, which covers the vast majority of everyday super accounts, are completely tax-free, whether you take them as a lump sum or as regular income payments. No tax on the way out, at any age past 60, once that condition is met. That part of the headline is true. The part people get wrong is what actually triggers it. Here's the biggest misconception, and it's the one that trips up more people than anything else on this list. Most people think turning 60 means permanently retiring, quitting work for good, before any of this tax-free treatment kicks in. It doesn't. The actual rule is that you need to cease a gainful employment arrangement after turning 60, not retire from working life altogether. Picture someone who leaves their job at 61 and takes 3 months off before starting a new role somewhere else. Because they ceased that employment arrangement after 60, every dollar they'd built up in super to that point becomes accessible and tax-free, even though they're back at work weeks later in a completely different job. The thing people assume they need, walking away from work forever, was never actually the requirement. One important catch though, only what you'd accumulated up to the point you left that job is freed up this way. Anything that goes into super after you start the new role gets preserved again, sitting there under the normal rules until you meet a condition of release a second time. Now, something that only affects a small slice of the country, but if it applies to you, it's genuinely new. From the 1st of July 2026, a new tax applies specifically to large super balances, anything over $3 million. The extra tax rate is 15% on the portion of your earnings attributable to the balance between $3 million and $10 million, rising to 25% on earnings attributable to anything above $10 million. It only touches the earnings on the amount over the threshold, not your whole balance, and it only applies going forward from when the earnings are realized. It's not retrospective. The first assessment period runs across the 2026 to 2027 financial year, meaning the actual tax bill lands from the 1st of July 2027. If your balance is nowhere near $3 million, this specific rule simply doesn't touch you at all. But if you're getting close, this is exactly the kind of threshold worth having a conversation with your fund or an advisor about before those earnings are locked in. Let's move to something that applies far more broadly and actually helps rather than costs. If your total super balance sits under $500,000, you're allowed to carry forward any unused portion of your concessional contributions cap from the past 5 financial years and use it all in a single year on top of the current year's cap. From the 1st of July 2026, that annual concessional cap itself sits at $32,500. And if you've got unused cap sitting from previous years because you didn't contribute the full amount, you can stack that on top in one go. Picture someone who sold an investment property at 61 and wants to shelter more of that gain inside super at concessional tax rates. If they've been under-contributing for a few years and their balance qualifies, they might be able to tip well over $100,000 into super in that single year, at the 15% contributions tax rate, instead of their marginal income tax rate. A genuinely large difference on a large enough amount. This is the one item on this list that rewards checking rather than costing you for not knowing. Most people who qualify never actually use it, simply because nobody told them the unused years were sitting there. And finally, the strategy almost nobody explains properly, the transition to retirement pension, or TTR. Once you've reached your preservation age, 60, for anyone born after June 1964, you can start drawing an income stream from your super while you're still working full-time, without ceasing any employment arrangement at all. That's the appeal, topping up your take-home income or reducing your work hours while your super tops up the gap. Here's the part almost nobody tells you. The investment earnings inside a TTR pension are still taxed at 15%, the same as ordinary accumulation super, not the 0% tax rate that applies once you're genuinely in retirement phase. A lot of people assume starting any pension from their super automatically makes it tax-free inside the fund. It doesn't, not at this stage. That tax-free treatment on earnings only switches on once you actually retire and notify your fund, converting the TTR into a full retirement phase pension, or automatically once you turn 65, whichever comes first. The income payments you receive from a TTR are still tax-free in your hands after 60, same as any other super income stream. It's specifically the earnings sitting inside the fund that stay taxed until the strategy properly converts. So here's the honest shape of turning 60. The tax-free access is real, but it switches on when you cease one job, not when you retire from work forever. The $3 million tax is real, but it's new, narrow, and only starts touching earnings from next financial year onward. The carry-forward contributions rule is sitting there for anyone under the balance threshold, quietly unused by most people who qualify. And the TTR strategy gives you income now, but the tax-free earnings inside the fund don't arrive until you actually convert it later. None of these are hidden or unfair, they're published rules. The problem is that you turn 60 and everything changes at once, is the version everyone assumes, and it's simply not how any of these actually work. 2 honest notes before you go. First, the condition of release rules. The $3 million threshold, the contribution caps and the preservation age are all set by law and reviewed regularly, so confirm the current figures in your own situation with the ATO or your super fund before relying on any of this. Second, this is general information, not personal advice. Whether any of these apply to you and how to use them depends entirely on your own balance, your work situation, and your retirement plans. So this is exactly the kind of thing to take to your super fund directly or a licensed financial advisor before you make any changes. If any of these surprised you, tell me in the comments which one. It helps me know what to cover next. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.